So we're going to start with just a question that I have right at the very top. And when we're talking about the deacon, there's really three things we can think about. We think about the heart. The heart is the character, the desire to serve. But the second part is the hands. The hands. What does a deacon do, right? So when I'm talking about what does a deacon do, what do you think maybe it means for a deacon to serve with his hands? Any thoughts about that?
The way I look at it, serving with the hands is get your hand dirty. Work with a person, whatever they need. If they need to hold their hand or help them walk, you give them a hand.
Sure.
If they need something around the house, get your hand dirty, wash the dishes if you have to.
Mm-hmm. Just doing something, right?
Doing something to serve.
Mm-hmm. And I would probably add not only their hands but their feet, right? Always going from place to place to place to place. It's important for a deacon to be involved in serving people. They are literally ministers of people. Now I've got a diagram up here to show 4 different areas probably that most deacons and most churches would serve at. There may be a few more, and we're going to talk about this for a minute. And then I'm going to show a differentiation of how deacons serve differently than maybe their pastors serve, and how the pastors and the deacons serve differently than maybe the members serve. And so we're going to talk about that. But let me just give a quick overview, and then I'll erase this and I'll get right into the next part of it. We see visits that deacons would do, and I'll get into depth with all of these, that they go and they see people. They care about people. Ordinances, preparing ordinances, Lord's Supper and baptism, right? Help to get them ready, help to assist the pastor. Benevolence, which is a care ministry that some churches have to help people within the church or people even in the community, depending on the context. And then protecting and preserving the unity of the church. Never is a deacon supposed to be the ball and chain, right? The ball and chain to the pastor. The deacon should be the one who unifies and helps to keep unity within the church. He's not that thumb to keep the thumb down on a pastor, right? And so unity is another part. We'll get into depth in that, but let me, before I do that, let me just quickly get this thing erased and show you how do deacons lead differently. So let's look at the 2 main offices of the church, the 2 offices that the New Testament talks about. It's not the best marker here, but I'm going to try to do it like this. We have the first is the pastors, and I know that churches might call them elders. They might call them overseers. Most Southern Baptist churches, at least people know exactly what it means when I say pastors. And then we've got deacons. And I'm going to put a circle here to show this is the deacons. And when we're talking about deacons, we're talking about servant leaders, and we'll get into what their specific jobs are. And then within the church, everybody else is kind of down here, and they serve on some sort of a ministry. I'm going to use teams. You might have committees. You might have other kinds of ways that people serve, but somehow they serve in different ways. And they are all interrelated with each other. The pastors and the deacons and the ministry teams relate to one another in a very special, unique way. Let me give an example. Pastors are ministers of the word. How do we know that? If we look at Acts chapter 6, we look verses 1 through 7, the apostles were saying, hey, we've got a problem. If you remember the passage, they said, we've got a problem. It is not right that we should give up our ministry of the word and prayer to serve tables, because there was a big hubbub going on about the Greek believers and the Jewish believers, and their widows were overlooked in the feedings. And so what they said is, we're going to devote 7 men to this task. These became the kind of the proto-deacons. And so they said, the apostles then said, that way we can devote ourselves to the ministry of the word and to prayer. And if we look even further in Scripture, and we look at Ephesians chapter 4, and we look at verses 11 and 12, it talks about that God gave some as apostles and prophets and evangelists and pastors, teachers for the equipping of the saints. The ministry of the word is a pastor's main job. Does that mean that pastors don't do people? Of course not. In fact, no pastor should hate people.
Right.
They should be all about the people, but their priority needs to be about loving the people with the word, right? Deacons are the ministers of people. As pastors are ministers of the word, Deacons are ministers of people, which means that helps a pastor to be freed up to be able to do ministry word. He's still going to do people, but the main focus of the deacons is going to be on those people, caring for them, being united with them, serving them, sharing with them, visiting them, encouraging them. And so the deacons are involved they're in a people business. And we look around in Scripture, and we can see plenty of that, and we see again in Acts 6, 1 through 7. But we also can see that where they're in 1 Timothy chapter 5, where they're called to really care for the vulnerable, the people that are harder to that are easy to take advantage of. And so they care for those who are vulnerable. And so the deacons really are looking out for the people. If they keep unity, it helps the pastor not to put out fires, but to focus on ministering through the ministry he's called to, which is a word, to equip the saints. Now, what does that mean? Well, they're interrelated. When you have all the church involved in ministry teams, and I believe the entire church should be involved in something, right? We know that. There's no such thing as an inactive member. I know we have inactive members in SBC life, but truthfully, biblically speaking, members should be involved in some way. And it shouldn't be that the FBI can't find them, right? Yeah. And so ministry teams are composed of members who serve. And they're equipped by the pastors to do just that, the work of service. So they are ministers of service, we can say. So they all serve in some way. They might do evangelism, they might do teaching, they might do the nursery, they might do welcoming, they might do discipling. Everybody's involved in the process. And the deacons help them to stay united. The pastors help them to be equipped so that they can do the work of service, so that the pastors can teach and the deacons can unify, and it just keeps going on and on and on. So all of these work together in that amazing thing that Jesus calls the ecclesia, the church, the called out ones, that he died for. That's what we're all about as deacons. That's why deacons can't be bosses or administrators. They're not there to be the ball and chain or to be the thumb or keep the pastor under the thumb. They're there to serve with the pastor for the purpose of loving the church and helping the church make disciples.